Okay, chat. So we got some controversial beef. Adin Ross ignoring Joe Rogan. You know Joe Rogan is Dana White's bestest friend. And let's see what's going on.
Adin Ross ignores Joe Rogan and makes everyone uncomfortable. We have Joe Rogan, Dana White, Kyle from Nelk, a streamer named Cody, and the streamer Adin Ross. Our focus at first will be on Kyle's interaction with Joe, and then we will shift our focus to Adin's high-stress interactions with Joe.
Dana is messy. Joe?
Joe Rogan enters, and we immediately see two things. The first being that Kyle, Adin, and the rest of the people at the table all notice Joe Rogan's entrance. The second being that they are all elated and overcome with happiness. We see the immediate elation as Kyle looks back to his friends behind the camera. What we see next is super interesting. Kyle notices the overexcitement from his friends and non-verbally scorns them through frowning his eyebrows and maintaining piercing eye contact, sending them the message to be cool. Kyle looks back at the table, but now intentionally masking his happiness and elation. What is the purpose of this? And what is the psychology behind intentionally masking your elation when meeting someone important?
Maybe he don't want
Emotional suppression occurs and is most effective when people feel low in the social hierarchy. Overly enthusiastic reactions might be perceived as intrusive or excessive by the admired individual, leading to a potential rejection or a negative evaluation. So in an attempt to raise their perceived status, Kyle and Adin mask their happiness in order to imply to everyone around them that they are used to being around people of massive influence. When Joe sees that Kyle is not losing his mind to meet him, Kyle is hoping that this causes Rogan to come to the realization that he is of similar caliber to him and is therefore more worthy of a potential friendship. It is important to note here that this strategy is most effective when you are the lowest in the current social hierarchy. As we will soon see, if you are in the middle of the social hierarchy, like Adin is, hiding your emotions could be counterintuitive and cause you to be perceived as insecure and unconfident with your current standing.
They looked at each other. That's what you usually get when you don't like talking to people and you try to act like, oh, he's just gonna talk to me and be my friend. No, it don't work that way. You gotta actually talk with the person. Conversation, communication.
Bares his teeth with a full smile, and Joe Rogan meets him with a half smile. Kyle immediately feels that he showed too much emotion, and we see this in the quickness in which he hides his smile after the two meet. Kyle's anxiety in a moment like this causes him to feel that he blatantly overextended and showed his cards, and we see him experiencing some negative emotions after this as he hunches over onto the table. But the reality is that the overextension was quite minimal. Rogan leaves the table and Kyle leaves soon after, giving Adin and his friends some time to think and strategize internally before Rogan comes back. And when he does come back, Adin makes a drastic strategic play against him.
Sports Nation.
He always betting.
Joe Rogan returns, and although Adin is out of camera, he will be back in camera very soon.
Yeah, it's still the play, man. It's still the play. Yeah. I'll see you there, man.
Joe Rogan notices that the filmer is intentionally lifting the camera up in order to get him in the shot, and makes direct eye contact with the camera. This is extremely counterintuitive for Adin and his friends because it discredits their previous strategy of masking their emotions, because it points to the idea that they are secretly fans. Adin and his filmer don't realize that Rogan notices them, and as we will soon see, it is only going to hurt the efficacy of the strategies that Adin implements in the near future.
Yeah, he lost some real money, I guess.
We We see Dana tell Joe about Adin's current losses, and then we see Joe look over at Adin behind the camera.
Like,
a look like this from someone of much greater influence is an invitation to establish the connection. The important thing is to be ready for it. We will soon be able to see more than we see right now. However, given how the following interactions go between Adin and Joe, we can infer now that Adin was not ready for or anticipating Joe's glance. Adin begins to make his move, and this is where things get interesting.
Yo, Joe. Yeah.
What you about to do?
You saying that, right? It's all good. That's right here. Is the camera right? That's right.
Off the lid.
Adin comes in order to say goodbye to
Hey, yo. He pressed him. He said, you gonna shake up everybody? And
Adin comes in order to say goodbye to Dana. But in order to get to Dana, we see Adin go to the right of the guy standing behind Dana, even though there is more physical room on the left side. Adin does this because the more power a person has, the larger their perceived personal space is. And so Adin hopes that by avoiding Joe Rogan, he can respect Rogan by respecting his space. In any interaction, the closer someone physically moves towards a reactant, the more positive effects there will be. Only up until the point where the person gets too close to the reactant and the threat threshold of the reactant is reached. The threat threshold, also known as the beginning of one's personal space, becomes larger and larger the more powerful a person is. Therefore, explaining why Adin choosing to give Rogan more personal space is an acknowledgement of Rogan's status. When we enter someone's personal space, we demand their attention. Adin was attempting to be polite by not taking up any of Joe's time, but Adin failed to realize that by entering Joe's personal space, Joe's attention was already on him. The reason this is so disrespectful and ends up having the opposite effect of Adin's intention is that in the beginning, Adin subconsciously acknowledged Joe's power by taking a different route in order to get to Dana. When Adin finally entered Joe's personal space, therefore demanding his attention, Adin failed to acknowledge Joe on an individual level. And we see Joe tighten his lips to contain and stifle his emotion and inner turmoil. Joe's subconscious mind is essentially telling his body to close down and not let anything out. The following interaction goes sour because Joe feels his attention was demanded by someone who is not even cognizant of his surroundings.
He said, come on now. Nah, that was so sketchy.
Sorry.
Dana immediately notices Adin's impropriety and prompts him to introduce himself to Joe. And we see Joe is visibly uncomfortable after the interaction. Joe tightens his lips again and raises his shoulders up to his neck. The pursed lips show us discontentment, and the raised shoulders show us discomfort and confusion. The gesture indicates the person's attempt to shrug off the awkwardness or discomfort of the situation, serving as a physical release of pent-up emotions. It's also a subconscious effort to protect oneself, as raising the shoulders protects our neck, and it's a natural response to feeling vulnerable or threatened. Leading up to the meeting with Joe Rogan, Adin masked his positive emotion in order to be perceived as higher status. While Adin took intentional measures, things went sour quickly when Adin entered Joe's personal space, indirectly demanding his attention, and didn't even acknowledge him. Dana having to prompt Adin does not save Adin in any way, as we see Joe Rogan's discomfort on full display after Adin leaves. Emotional suppression is most effective when one is lowest on the current social hierarchy, which Adin was not. It is important to anticipate and be ready for potential openings in the conversation that the higher status individuals offer. If one fails to catch these signals, it only affects the potential relationship negatively. It is important to recognize that the more powerful a person is, the larger their perceived personal space is. When you enter someone's personal space, it is no longer time to play it cool, because by the nature of entering someone's personal space, you are demanding their attention. What are your thoughts on this fascinating interaction? Like the video and subscribe because it shows me what you want to see more of. Follow the newsletter on strategic communication linked in the description.
Alright, chat. It look like that's it. What y'all think though? Was it really that deep? I don't think it's that deep.